is an important country in terms of constitutional reforms, and this is why I want to talk about BBI briefly. But before that, you must have an historical background of the reforms that we have had in Kenya. Kenya is a perfect example of a country in Africa that has had major constitutional reforms since independence that has largely contributed to modern governance, i.e. change and progress from traditional to modern forms. Constitutional reforms and development in Kenya can be traced to 1895, when Kenya became a British protectorate. Prior to the onset of the colonialism, Kenyan communities had an oral constitution that were passed to citizens in various communal and political functions. Throughout the colonial period, the constitution protected the socio-economic and political interests of the British nationals. The Constitution recognizes inequality. The Constitution recognized inequality on the basis of race. Europeans were awarded privileges and rights, while Asians and Africans were victims of racial discrimination, economic exploitation, and political marginalization. Africans did not enjoy basic rights. The judiciary, the legislature, and the executive councils were dominated by Europeans and existed to perpetuate colonialism. Kenya became independent in 1964. At independence, the country adopted a Westminster model constitution. Under this framework, Kenya became a dominion headed by the Queen, who was the head of state. The Prime Minister, Jomo Kenyatta, was the head of government. This arrangement was dissolved in 1964 when Kenya was declared a republic. The president became both the head of state and the head of government. In the independent constitution, executive powers were given to the Governor General. He was to exercise these powers either directly or through his subordinate officers. He had power to appoint ministers, prorogue or dissolve parliament, exercise and pardon for convicted offenders, and proclaim a state of emergency. The independent constitution put checks and balances to the Governor General in the use of his powers. The Governor General was to exercise all these powers through a cabinet which had collective responsibility to Parliament. The Governor General needed authority from Parliament to declare a state of emergency. The Constitution had clauses that gave the civil service independence so as to protect it from manipulation from the Governor General. These clauses and balances were gradually removed once Kenya became a republic. The republican status gave Kenya a powerful president. The president could prorogue and dissolve parliament at his own will. The president had a right to address parliament anytime. The president made all appointments to the cabinet, judiciary, and the public office. The president too could dismiss any of the people he nominated at will. It is this excessive power in the hands of the chief executive that has formulated Kenya's governance in the last 4 decades since independence. The Independence Constitution established a parliament with 2 chambers, i.e. the House of Representatives and the Senate. The House of Representatives was to be elected on an universal franchise, while senators were to be elected on limited franchise. The 2 houses were to guard against enactment enactment of legislation without bills having been exposed to of course, having been exposed to through scrutiny. The creation of a scrapping of the Senate, the creation of a republic and eventual dissolution of the opposition political party led to scrapping of the Senate. Since 1966, Kenya has become a unitary state with one parliament up to 2010 constitution referendum. When a devolved government with 47 counties was enshrined in the Kenyan constitution, Kenya has now the national government and the county government. The national government is headed by the president, while each county is headed by the county governor. The constitution was amended to provide for a parliament whose representatives were elected by citizens in the constituencies. In the colonial period, Kenya had a plural court system. These were special courts for Africans, Asians, and Europeans. As colonialism progressed, these were two main courts for Africans, i.e. native courts and official courts. Official courts used English law. Native courts did not have specific guidelines. It dealt with issues involving Africans and their traditions. The court structure was amended in 1967. Only one court system based on the Constitution and ordinary laws was put in place. The High Court had unlimited jurisdiction from the Constitution. The Court of Appeal set up the Constitution, presiding over appeals from the High Court. The independence of the court systems in Kenya was promised. Was